A very good afternoon to all. My name is Jazzy and a warm welcome to our webinar on Zero Trust Future, Why Endpoint Security is Critical in Modern Day Threat Landscape. With the rise in remote working and accelerated device proliferation, the organizational vulnerabilities available for cybercriminals to exploit have increased. To stay ahead of cyber attacks, it is critical for companies to adopt a zero trust model, and endpoint security is an important part of the formula. In this session, our esteemed industry speakers will share insights on the latest modern unified endpoint management trends for building stronger cyber resiliency, how to improve your company's cybersecurity posture by implementing zero-touch patching as your security baseline, and what are some of the other modern security approaches in zero-trust model to ensure the security of enterprise data at rest, in transit, and in use. We would like to thank our partner, ManageEngine, for making this webinar possible. ManageEngine is the enterprise IT management division of Zoho Corporation. Established and emerging enterprises, including 9 of every 10 Fortune 100 organizations, rely on ManageEngine real-time IT management tools to ensure optimal performance on their IT infrastructure, including networks, servers, applications, desktops, and more. ManageEngine has offices worldwide, including the United States, Netherlands, India, UAE, Mexico, Singapore, Japan, China, and Australia, as well as 200 over global partners to help organizations tightly align their business and IT. We would also like to thank our supporting organizations, Association of Information Security Professionals, and ISACA Singapore chapters for their support and having their members to participate in today's session. Before we start the event proper, allow us to share some functions of this webinar. We are making a recording of this session and it will be available on demand in Zoom one day after the webinar. For participants who complete the post-webinar survey at the end of the event, you will also receive a link to download the presentation decks. If you have any questions at any point of time, you may use the Zoom Q&A function and post in your questions. Please help us to indicate your name and company name when submitting them. We will answer to them during the Q&A segment after all the presentations have concluded. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Agitech Cybersecurity Chapter Chairman, Dutch, to give his welcome address and introduction. Besides being the Cybersecurity Chapter Chairman at Agitech, Dutch is also the Deputy Chairman of Technical Work Group member for Cybersecurity at WorldSkills Singapore. He is the co-founder and Chief Executive Officer of iSpring and has been working for the company since 2000. Over the past 20 years, Dutch held senior management and executive level positions for high-tech companies and took on various challenging and operational roles with regional responsibilities. Over to you, Dutch.
Thank you, Jess. Let me put through my slide. Hi, welcome. Hope you all have a good lunch. Good afternoon to all. It's great to see you all. It's my pleasure to welcome you to learn more about Zero Trust Future, why endpoint security is critical in the modern day of threat landscape. I'm Dutch, the chairman of Agitech Cybersecurity Chapter, and my full-time role is the CEO and co-founder of iSpring Innovation. In this session, our industry speaker from ManageEngine will share insight on latest modern unified endpoint management, trends for building strong cyber resiliencies, how to effectively monitor a hybrid workforce, how a zero trust model protect your networks from ransomware. There will also be a panel discussion where will be representative from AISP and Wilson International, joining us and explore how can cloud-based endpoint security helps IT team overcome challenges of remote hybrid work environment and help to ensure security without hampering the end user experience. So, to our old friends and existing member of EduTech, it's nice to have you with us again. To our new friends who are unfamiliar with what EduTech does, let me give you a brief introduction. EduTech is a premium trade association set up to represent and champion the interests of the tech industry in Singapore. Within rapidly evolving technology landscape, EduTech strives to create an ecosystem that anticipates trends and develop sustainable initiatives to strengthen and grow the industry. Currently, we have more than 900 members ranging from innovative startups, vibrant small and medium-sized enterprises, to top MNCs whom are representing and articulating any technology industry concerns to relevant authority and stakeholder. EduTech strive to create an ecosystem that to strengthen the community and help the ICT industry to grow. EduTech strive an active voice for the tech industry by actively and responsibly advocating for change while remaining a trusted and respected partner of the government. EduTech also contributes to tech industry growth and transformation through national programs and initiatives that drive and enhance the Singapore economy. Three key roles that what we do: the business enabler as a neutral platform and aggregator for the tech industry. We have various platforms that create opportunity for our members. A responsible voice, we run sessions with various government industry to provide feedback and give suggestions on how to help the industry. For the industry insight, we provide knowledge and intel of updates and news so that members will be more aware of the rapid changes that they would adapt it quickly. As to coordinate the needs of the subsector within the ICT space, we have formed industrial chapters and committees to support strategic and emerging sector. We have classified our chapter into tech verticals and non-tech horizontal. Under the tech verticals, we have AI, high computing, cloud and data, cybersecurity, and for non-tech horizontal, we have digital transformation, Singapore enterprise, and smart nation chapter. Company join EduTech as a member can choose which chapter they prefer to involve in, and each chapter will plan activities, initiative to engage the chapter members and the industry. EduTech also spin-off committees that cater to emerging market industry needs. For example, 123 Jumpstart Committee cater to young startup company. Gaming and educational technology are gaining traction. We have also formed these two committees to cater for the needs. Other committees are blockchain, data center, data protection, digital trust, government procurement, SME Go Digital, talent and capability committee. New chapters and committee we launch respond to the technology industry continued growth and needs. If you would like to know more about EduTech, please write to EduTech Secretariat at membership@edutech.org.sg. I repeat, membership@edutech.org.sg. I would also like to thank our partners, especially these Managed Engine, Association of Information Security Professionals, AISP, and ISACA for supporting this webinar. I hope that you find this information helpful for your organization. I wish you a fruitful webinar ahead. Thank you. I hear some voices. Over to you, Jess.
Thank you, Dash. Thanks so much, right? So let me share this. All right, so next out, we have Romania's Global Head for Technical Support at Managed Engine, to give us his presentation on understanding the evolution of unified endpoint management in a modern hybrid world. With over 20 years of experience as the global head of technical support, Romanius is responsible for ensuring that managed engine UEM customers across the globe are happy and oversees the seamless onboarding, product training, and implementation and support experience for all customers. He also heads the product evangelist, professional services, partner certification, and customer success teams to nurture long-term relationships with each client and in turn nurture community champions for managed engine. Let us welcome Romanius.
Thank you, Jess. Trust you're able to see my video and hear my voice. Great. Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here on this online platform to discuss few things, though the time is very limited. We should be able to do some justification with that time which is given to me. Right. So let's start with the evolution of Unified Endpoint Management. That means what you see here as endpoint management is not in the same way from the beginning, right? So I would be giving a quick story about this. So story is something that it's all related to us and we all are part of this. And this particular part of the story is from the lockdown, probably approximately 2 years, exodus of endpoints, how it started from staying from the office to home, back to office, things like that. So we call this as exodus of endpoint because every endpoint used to be within a secure perimeter, right? With all the securities and no security issues or breaches happening. And from that level, probably 2019, things have changed. There was lockdown, there was pandemic, and end users moved to remote locations. And because of that, endpoints also moved. And during this time, the move of endpoints it's not only the factor, but there is also a move of the applications into the cloud. There would at the back end there were more movement of applications into cloud environment. That's you would have find. And we were all here discussing about this success story because we were able to successfully go through this and continue our business, and that's the success. And we have had a lot of methodologies. And in order to maintain these endpoints, it's not a new challenge or of these 2 years, but it's from the beginning, it's been a challenge. I don't know how many of you know about novel network, which is a network where you have to have your Windows 3.11 for Windows, a GUI for you to just start working on that, right? Gone are those days. And from those days till now, we have a lot of changes. Back then, we were calling it as system management. Now we call it as legacy management, right? There were independent systems to manage them, right? For imaging, patch management, configurations, it was called group policies. We were piggybacking on that. Software distribution, it has a separate system. And for the modern devices with modern operating system and mobile devices, we had different approach. Enrollment, auto update, application management, device management, things like that. Now, these two were two independent systems. And from there, it moved to a kind of consolidated management, one console, but different management. And then from there, it moved to a true or unified way of managing it. That means having a single agent which should cater to the needs of both way of managing it, legacy and modern management. Now, this is how it has evolved. Probably you should take 10 to 12, 15 years back then, it has evolved this way. And I'm happy to say that as a unified endpoint management product, security product at this point, we have seen all these changes and we have provided solution to our customers in all these phases, right? from the legacy to modern to EMM to MDM and today UEM. So moving forward, I would like to say this. Note this guy, Randall Cameron. He was analyzing the Gartner's magic quadrants across so many years, what has been happening. And one of the interesting findings, he has given a lot of things. One of the interesting findings that I am interested in, want to show you here is Microsoft and Manage Engine were the only two organizations which have provided solution to all these waves and across the endpoint management evolution. And I'm very happy to just share you this information, which is, this guy is not from us. He has written, he has done some analysis and written, right? Now, managing itself is not sufficient. We have to be able to forecast what is going to be the future, because the last 2 years, or this year and last year, was different. Now, what is going to be the future? So this is how the prediction goes. There would be a permanent cultural change in the way that we work. And similarly, the endpoint security is going to come to the forefront. And to everybody's prediction, ransomware is going to rule. That means there is more prone to ransomware attacks because of so many opportunities. We will discuss that briefly. Now, why should we care about convergence of management into security? Now, there is too much cost that we pay to the cyber crimes. So they have projected that 10.5 trillion is the amount in US dollars by 2025, right? If you look at the next, the graph which is shown here from IBM, that shows that 4.5, this year is the highest cost in millions US dollars that we are paying to the data breach across organizations. Now, this is something we have to really take care. Now, this one is from 7 years. This is the longest duration of a vulnerability not being known to the vendor or not known to the end users. 287 days. So this means that only when you get a 0-day update from a vendor, you can say that you should be able to deploy and protect your endpoints on the network. But other than that, in these 287 days, you are still under threat. That we have to understand. And one of the major contributor or threat to the world now is basically the ransomware. This is a survey. Based on that, they are giving the split. And you could see that ransomware occupies predominantly that graph. And if you add, or if you look at it from the endpoints point of view, 46 plus email compromise, do you think it's going to happen at the server data center? No, it's going to happen at your endpoint. Now, other app misconfiguration, insider threat. So on a whole, the endpoints are targeted too much. So that's how the prediction also goes, right? The data, the survey also says the same stuff. So you have to ensure you protect your endpoints, particularly from the ransomware. Now, I want to touch upon the ransomware a little bit. Now, till 2017, the ransomware or the attacks using ransomware considered in a different aspect. Hope everybody remembers WannaCry, right? UK was the prime victim where NHS, their national health services was completely down, right? Now, the cost related to the WannaCry is mostly with the victims, not with the threat actors. Meaning they have not gained much out of this attack. It was more of fun, more of technical expertise that they exercised, or more of vulnerability which is not being addressed, which being exploited. But the revenue on this attacks so far from the beginning till 2017 was not much. But after 2017, the evolution of Bitcoin, right, and the modernization of attacks, the same ransomware, but provided as a service, or as a service, ransomware as a service. Now, these two has made dramatic change. Now, there are sites which call the rookie cyber criminals to use their service, give the training and documentation how to look at prospective organization, how to observe their weaknesses, how to infiltrate, how to extort, how to exfiltrate using their own services. This is happening in dark web. If you go and read the information in dark web, you will find this. Now, how do you overcome this? How do you protect your network and endpoints? Unless you have a better understanding, you will not be able to handle it better. So to put it in a simpler way, either using the vulnerabilities of the known vulnerabilities, right? Like RDP, weaknesses, exchange. You have seen a lot of such things declared by the vendors. And the spear phishing and getting the privileges or credentials, they just get into the organization and take control of the endpoints, the servers, and then do the attack. And based on the negotiation, the ransomware is given and you get the recovery. Not in all cases, right? So this is how it goes. Now, recently, you see a lot of double extortion. That means one side there is encryption and the ransomware attack and ransom being brought, and the other side, the attackers as a coalition take this information and then put it on dark web and then sell it to the outsiders. Now there is more such things, and I know organizations which closely take a look at this dark web in order to see whether their organizational related information or data are being discussed or sold. Now, that much serious is ransomware attacks are now, and it is very essential for us to plan and protect them. So we have seen how, on a high level, how it works. But there are organizations who are dedicatedly working on this to understand this better. For example, Lockheed and Martin has a cyber kill chain, which talks about how the threat actors are looking at your resources and how they plan to get in, identify the vulnerability, and how they take the control, and how your data is being breached or taken outside, right? This is from Lockheed. And there is similar one, Midterm Attack, that they talk about the techniques, right? Tactics, procedures. And they have from my opinion, they have a very clean or analyzed reporting on actual attacks, take this information and tell you how the threat actor has gotten into your network, what technologies, techniques has been used, what tools has been used, and how they took the data outside and exfiltrate. This is a great resource for us to understand and look over in a network from the threat actor's point of view. Similarly, Microsoft has also given their own view, three segments that enter the environment, traverse and spread, execute the objective. Now all these things have one common thing in nature. Basically, they know how the threat actors are getting in, taking your data and going out. Now, the basic idea is to understand such things from the existing incidents which have happened and improve our threat intelligence, or look your network and endpoint from the threat actor's point of view so that you should be able to protect that. One such beautiful example is this one. See, this is from a famous attack, DocSite, and you would find how many tools have been used here. In general, this is the summary. You have tools from freeware, you have tools from free services, you have Windows own utilities being used there, right? Now, all the COTS software, COTS is something commercially off-the-shelf applications. Now, all these things were put together, used to 90% to understand your network. Only 9 to 10% is from their own application, their own software to do this attack. Now, you flip this scenario and see if you are able to get these free tools and understanding, if you're able to get the knowledge and see your network and endpoints from a threat actor's point of view, from the same tools what they use, and you should be able to understand where the gap lies in your network and the endpoints. And you have to proactively start planning how you can fill the gap. It could be within the office, it could be remote, or it could be hybrid. So the way the work culture is going to be is not in a particular location. It's going to be spread across hybrid everywhere. So we have to have these things developed so that we should be able to protect them. Right. So this is one quick example how Microsoft and Mitre has seen this attack distributed, categorized, and broken into different steps, and how this is you are going to understand and protect your network. So let's move on. So the basic idea is you have to ensure you reduce your cost on protecting your network by doing regular maintenance, cyber hygiene, so that you increase the cost of the threat actor, so that he won't be able to spend so much to attack your organization. That's the basic criteria and idea for us to protect your endpoints, which is spread across the larger attack surface, right? That's how it has to go. Now, I'm going to just, based on our experience during these times in the 2 years, work from home and back to office, and again, hybrid. Now, this is what is the change that we have seen. One, the patch management, focusing on patch management has changed to a broader level of vulnerability management. Let's look at that first. So before pandemic, we had a convenience of doing a delayed patching, selective patching, or cumulative patching, right? Now, all these things have gone. When your endpoint is outside, you have to ensure you cannot have any choice. You cannot compromise with someone else. So you have to ensure the endpoints outside are properly protected. So it's not only known vulnerability. When I say talk about known vulnerability, the vendor releases the patch and it is known to you, and you are going to deploy it to the endpoint. This is biggest task. When you do this properly and you are actually protecting your endpoints to the maximum. And there are unknown ways of vulnerabilities. What is that? What is there in your browser? How many plugins you use? What is a helper object in your browser? Does the extension patching a plugin fixes or provides a fix for your extension? There are a lot of questions on these areas which is not being taken serious. How is your strategy for the USB devices? How is your data leak protection is designed? Now, all these things have become a forefront line and become a biggest challenge for the organizations during this pandemic. And the best ways and result of that is they have moved from the patching alone to combined vulnerability management, where you have the patching, the known, and protecting your endpoints from the unknown areas. So general vulnerability, the misconfigurations, the protocols which you don't have to have in your network, the ports which you don't have to open, right? All those things have to be carefully chosen and remediated from a single point. And I was talking about ransomware, and this vulnerability management or protection for the endpoint also include anti-ransomware from our solution, because basically it comprehensively covers. You will not know there has been a ransomware attack and the process was killed and the data was resumed and nothing has happened. Only from the data, from the alerts, you should be able to know. So that's how you have to ensure the endpoint or the end user's experience is so rich. So you proactively go and monitor that. The second area is going to be on data leak prevention. So I'm not going to go through how you configure, how you understand this. Basically, you have to understand how is your data defined. What are sensitive data according to your organization? Now, how do you try to defend this? Meaning, so it's not only through the individuals who could pass on this, or it's not only due to the USB port, somebody is stealing them. It could be a printout, it could be a screenshot, it could be a mishandling of sending the email to a wrong person, right? Now, all these areas, now look at this from the unknown point of view. Now, these are all the areas where you unknowingly or your employees unknowingly do that. So this has to be properly handled based on the data leak prevention. So you define your sensitivity and ensure your agents sits between the OS and the drivers and the outside world, and ensure that no critical data, sensitive data, what is defined by you goes out, right? This is one area. So we have data leak prevention built under the Unified Endpoint Management. Moving forward, the third scenario I would like to talk about is the application management. Back in those days, it was all about talking about installing the application and uninstalling, things like that. Now it has changed. It's not only about the installation, it is also about allowing the applications to run and blacklisting. So what do you mean by allowing the application? Only the allowed known application can run, others cannot. This majorly prevents malware to be allowed or any unknown software to be run in your network, which prevents your network or endpoints to the greater level, right? And followed by that, there is something called the privileged access. I mean, any application which has to take a privilege and go to an elevated level and run has to be done at that point of time, not always. Now, this again is adding more protection to your endpoints, where any unknown application or things would be properly handled with running with a minimal privilege, not with the excessive additional privilege. Now, these three scenarios clearly tells us the pandemic has changed the way that we look at the endpoint management. Now, there is no such thing as management. It's everything is under security. Endpoint security means a well managed and well secured endpoint. Now, when your endpoints are secured and protective and helping your end users to continue your business, and there any type of work culture like modernized or hybrid, your endpoints would be able to be productive rather than leaking data from the organization's point of view. And with that, probably I'll complete. So if you have any questions, we should be able to take up later. And I'll pass on this to Jess. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Romanians, for your insightful sharing. Right, next up, we have Santosh. Santosh, we will have Santosh to give his presentation from zero touch to zero trust, the absolute must of endpoint security. Santosh is a senior technical evangelist for Unified Endpoint Management solutions at Managed Engine. He brings more than 10 years of experience in the broadly defined categories of endpoint security, technical support, and product implementation and training. His specialty is guiding customers to make the best choices while selecting and implementing endpoint management and security solutions for enterprise environments. Santosh, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the wonderful words. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and then I'll begin my presentation. Okay, I hope all of you are able to view my screen. Perfect. All right. Thank you everyone for joining in on behalf of Managed Engine family. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all our partners, users, and users who are currently evaluating all our products. Thank you very much. And in today's webinar session, I'm going to talk about how to stay ahead of trouble and what are the different security what are the different absolute musts of an endpoint security, traveling from a zero touch to a zero trust perspective. We saw in the first session about how ransomware has evolved, and what are the different techniques that they're bringing in order to attack those endpoints, the endpoints that are currently at homes or at different places, distributed workforce, right? So what are the absolute musts? What are the different things that I can implement as part of endpoint security, the absolute musts? So I'm going to begin with a question to all of you. which is the third largest economy in the world, right? And the first two are obvious. You have United States, and then followed by, so you do have first two are obvious. Who is the third largest economy? It's the ransomware attacks, the ransomware threat actors who are currently evolving as we also evolved during this COVID time. It is very, very clear that the industry of threat or ransomware is growing, as Romanos was talking about the increase in Bitcoin value or the way the Bitcoin can be used. So they have also evolved in a lot of other ways. Their biggest market. And if you look at that, how do I say that? If you look at the global ransomware report that's for the October 2021, right? It's pretty new, right? Just last month or probably a couple of days old. So you can see the major impact of ransomware is towards, if you see on the top middle portion, ransomware by industry, government organizations and healthcare has seen significant increase in ransomware attacks. The target for them, the target is very clear. I was discussing this ransomware attack with another expert of ours, and he was saying the target is very clear. Previously, how the ransomware operated is they throw the nets, they throw the baits, and whomever picks it up, they become the victim. But right now, they're very targeted. They know who to target, what's their target, what's the size of their organization, what's the revenue of the organizations, how they can respond. If you look at it, they're very, very unique, or they're very focused on government organizations. They're very focused on healthcare. Say they know who their target is and they're human operated. It's not just throwing away the baits and fishing here and there and let's see who picks it up and then probably that becomes a victim. No, that's not the model that we are seeing now. It has pattern has completely changed. It's more of focus and it is driven. How do I say that it's more of a focused and driven? Let me take this Colonial pipeline attack, cyber attack. We all know this happened, right? And we probably knew the type of attack that came in and the impact that caused it in the US. What are the different areas were affected, how it was affected. It is more focused on the economy. It is more focused on money, right? Bringing down the economy. It was more focused on a specific area, right? Government organizations or private organizations that brings wealth, right? So we have learned enough about it on the news, but let's look into the actual attack that happened. I want to talk about that and then give you why we should have some essentials in endpoint security. So I've just posted the timeline of how this Colonial pipeline attack started and how it ended. Actually, this is the entire timeline that happened for this Colonial pipeline attack, and I've taken it from dot trace to understand how this attack was unfolded. So the first was a compromise. The first was a credential. So they initially looked for a compromised account, a compromised high privilege account. They look for admin credentials. That's what they did even in this attack, right? That this pattern, and in fact, Romanos was also discussing about this Mitterrand attack. If you go to their site, they will also talk about it. First thing, infiltration. They try to go inside the organization, get the admin credentials, the low-hanging fruits, the admin credentials. Who are the IT guys? Who are the admin users? So the first compromise was they got the credentials. They got the admin credentials. How did they get it? It was just a VPN account, unused VPN account. Think about it. Very, very common thing, right? Probably somebody would have forgotten about the account that was created, the service account, unused VPN attack, which nobody is using, and it has higher privilege. That was the attack. That was the account that was used. And then once they got that, account details, then the second thing was using this account. They used it to go transfer spread, lateral spread on their organization, use the remote management tool that's available, RDB connections, use their own environment and sit there and use remote management to go from one mission to the other endpoint missions. They spread laterally on the endpoints. And once they did that, right? And the third thing is data exfiltration. How did they exfiltrate the data? They used common applications, common things, PC cloud. That was the actual one that is used during the Colonial pipeline. Romanos was mentioning it. 92% of the times, the tools that ransomware or the threat actor uses is commonly available. Those are commonly, they don't devise it anymore. They don't, unless it's very much required. But most common, 90% of the time, they use the common tools that are available, common platforms that are available. So how did they extract the data? They used the SMB, protocol, or they used this PC cloud to upload all their data, external uploads from the customer's environment. So they used the VPN account, unused VPN account, then used remote management tool to go laterally inside their organization. And then they use third parties to upload all the data that they want. And once they upload the data, the sad part is you will only know it at the last point, right? The problem with the ransomware is you will be able to detect it only when it starts, encrypting, or when it starts to go for its objective. But by the time when you react to those ransomwares, the damage is already done, right? They have already taken the data. They have already seen your environment. They know what's there. They have even sabotaged your backups that's available, and then they go for encrypting the file. Most of the time, sadly, the security measures that we have will be detected at the time of encrypting, which is actually a point of no return. And then once they encrypted, that's the end of the mission when it comes to this Colonial pipeline. That's what happened, right? So the learning from this Colonial pipeline that I see here is, first thing is unused account. What did they do? They used a VPN account which had higher privileges, which absolutely did not have a multi-factor authentication. That was the problem. They did not have multi-factor authentication. So they were able to get the password. And most important thing is, if you go into the, if you want more details, you can read it. They say there were no phishing attack. How did they get this account? There were no phishing attack. No employees clicked the link. Nothing of that sort. That's what Ramanus was trying to explain. The way the ransomware is operating has evolved. There is no need for going for a phishing type of attack, or having an insider, or probably clicking on a link. This was absolutely, they did not have any proof of somebody clicking a link and compromising the account, but they were using few other techniques just to understand what are the different accounts that are available, and they were able to find out one account that was not used. That was a VPN account with no multi-factor authentication. They were able to use that to get into the system, and they were surprised how they were, they compromised, they were able to get into those systems. So first one, unknown accounts that were not used. Second, unknown remote management tool, RDB connections, unknown connections that exist inside the organization. So from endpoint to endpoint, what they noticed during this attack that was happening is that they had several hours of remote management or RDB connections established from one endpoint to the other endpoint using those accounts. They did not even have a clue of why those connections were established. But later on, they understood that it used these remote connectivities in order to filtrate or do the lateral movement inside the organization. And finally, they used common tools like PC Cloud, which they have access, right? They were able to upload these data, whatever data that they took from the organization, they were able to take those data, upload it to a PC Cloud server. So that was allowed in that organization. They were able to upload it to the PC Cloud, using the unencrypted SMB protocols. So these are very, very common things, very simple things that probably I wouldn't say missed out, or they would have left it because they think that's not a big problem. So allowing applications that are not needed, or you think about what this application could do with the remote management RDB functionality, what this application is doing in my organization. So it's more about having a control or inventory of what applications you have. So simple things like that. If they had a control over those simple things, I think they could have averted this pipeline ransomware attack. So that's a great learning. Accounts, different protocols used within the organizations, and different applications that's being used. So from this understanding, from this attack, what is our understanding is that we need to have simple security measures that could effectively bring down the attack surface. That's why we say you go from a zero touch to a zero trust model. From there to here, And it's a journey. You need a zero touch patch management. You need a zero trust model. If you have these together, and along the journey, if you have other security measures in place for endpoint security, you will have a better edge in reducing the attack surface. So the first one is about the zero touch patch management for a distributed workforce. So you need to have a system that could make sure your complete environment is patched. They make sure no vulnerability is exposed, no vulnerabilities are there. Make sure they are addressed every day. Make sure zero-day patches, whenever they are released, you go ahead and patch them. And you should also note that in our current infrastructure or the current workforce that we have, distributed workforce, it is important that you have to keep in mind about the bandwidth, because it's about the user's internet that we are going to use for patching. So we have to make sure we understand what bandwidth they are in, and have a proper patching schedule, inform the user about the patching, and a flexible reboot policy. When should the endpoints be rebooted, and handling the issues that comes along with the patch, right? How to revert a patch, because they're all at home, and if the application goes down, or if there are any problems that arise because of patch, you should be able to revert back easily. And those are most important thing when it comes to zero touch. And one other important thing about zero touch patching is contextually aware. The patching system that you're going to pick up should be aware about where the user is, whether he is at home, whether he is at office. If he's at home, then I should patch him differently, use the bandwidth regulations, and I should make sure he downloads the patches from the internet itself. If he is at office, then I should probably use distribution points that are available, or I can use the full bandwidth. Contextually aware of where the endpoint is, and make sure I use specific policies, patching policies, to download and patch those machines. Make sure I have zero unpatched machines in my environment. So that's number one. A simple patch management should be able to protect you. The second one, we all know about this attack, that the vulnerability that was actively exploited, the spook.js, for the browsers, right? Chrome-based browsers or Chromium-based browsers. Now, we all know what this attack is all about, right? They, to give you a short detail, they used it relies more on the Spectre type of attack, right? The Spectre attack that happened, or how the Spectre evolved. They use the processes, the same processes. When they have 2 or 3 applications sharing the same processes, they should be able to take information out of it, right? That's a very short version of it. So we all know how this specific vulnerability was exploited. I just have a screenshot to explain you better. So there, where you can see the account, 2 different, one same domain, where the Chrome was having 2 different URLs. The Chrome was processing it under the same process. Thereby, one process has access to the credentials that was used by another process. That's a very simple way of telling you that. So I could trick you with the same type of domain, or as you can see here, spook.tumblr.com, and same, you have the actual tumblr.com. So this spook website runs along with the same process where the actual legitimate site runs. Now, what happens is, when you enter the credentials on the legitimate site, along the other side, the spook site will be able to take the credentials of your legitimate site as well. So that's the recent vulnerability that was discovered on Chrome, and that's very, very dangerous. If you imagine you have your organization account that you use, and you have a spook site on the other side that resembles something like your organization account, and if both process separately, there is no problem in your organization account. But then when the Chrome process these information, it puts these 2 into a same process, thereby giving the spook to access to your credentials that you actually use on your legitimate site. So these kind of vulnerabilities keep coming up on endpoints. And the second important thing that we have to do is go for a stronger browser security, right? How do the accounts get compromised? Through simple attacks like this. I just explained the spook attack of how it takes the account details and passwords from a legitimate site. same can be used to take it from your organization as well. So it's important that we go ahead and secure our browsers from all different points. How many other browsers you use, we need a strong security measure in order to protect these browsers. It could be with browser emerging as a different operating system, I would put it like that, because browser is empowered. Everybody is moving towards cloud-based applications. Everybody is moving toward a distributed workforce. If you ask somebody today, what do you do when you switch on a machine? They say they straight away go to a browser and start browsing. That's all they know right now, right? It was not previously 15 years back. That was not the case. But now everything is on the browser. You have web applications coming up. You have all your organizations connecting using the browsers, and all your sensitive information is handled through browsers now, which means browser itself is behaving as a bigger operating system, and it needs to be protected well, right? The spook attack that I talked about, even if they have different processes, even if they have browser isolations, session isolations, still they were able to take data from the legitimate site. That's the vulnerability that caused issues recently. So it's important that we make sure we guard our browsers with correct plugins. We make sure we have an inventory of what plugins should be used, what are the different malicious plugins that is available on your environment, and make sure you remove them, and you make sure you churn all the privileges that the browsers have. Something like background processing. Chrome has this ability, right? If some process is launched using Chrome's ability by any website or any URL, even if you close the Chrome, they will still continue to run on the background. Those kind of permissions should be churned. It should be cut off, because you cannot allow a process to run on the background while you close the Chrome and you go for something else. So those kind of permissions should be kept in control. So browser security is one of the very, very essential part of endpoint security today, modern endpoint security. And then you go towards zero trust model, right? It's become a very, very, very common for everybody to talk about a zero trust. Everybody's talking about zero trust. Everybody's talking about moving towards a zero trust. I was recently talking to one of the cybersecurity experts, and he was saying, can we go towards a zero trust model probably in a week or probably in a month's time? No, that's not possible. Zero trust, to take zero trust into the organization completely, or absorb a zero trust model into your organization, will take probably 10 years or probably more than that, because zero trust is not about just having one type of authentication and then getting connected. No, it's about a model that you induct into every place. So you take this zero trust and you position this at every place for an effective endpoint security. When I say zero trust, you could have a proactive measures of a model for zero trust, and also a reactive model of zero trust. What do I mean by proactive and reactive? What happens? I mean, what are the things that you do? Like things like you protect the data leak preventions or the patching processes. They're proactive measures. You make sure you get all your endpoints protected through a proactive measures. And there should also be reactive model as well. When a ransomware hits your endpoints, when it tries to infiltrate, like the Colonial pipeline that I spoke about, when they try to get the access to your accounts and when they infiltrate into your organizations, somehow, how is your reaction? What are the different reactions that you have to give? I mean, that's where we come to a point called anti-ransomware. I saw the poll details. I mean, that was cast in earlier, right? Probably right now you might have another poll as well. But majority of you, chose that I'm confused. That was the majority one, and some said I'm looking for some anti-ransomware solutions. So anti-ransomware is something that's very, very reactive, and we at Manage Engine also has an anti-ransomware add-on that's been for the customers. So what we actually do, we sense the ransomware that's coming in, and when the moment it starts encrypting or it starts its process, we go ahead and stop it there, cut the ransomware, and make sure your data is recovered back. So that's more of a reactive model. And from there, we also have EDR that's in progress, where it's more of a response for every activities that goes on at your endpoint level. So zero trust, with the lack of time, should be a philosophy. The zero trust model should be a philosophy. What do I mean by philosophy? Try keeping your users off your corporate networks while you still provide access to your applications. That's number one. The second one is make sure you have single sign-on for all the corporate applications, whether it could be on-premise or SaaS or IaaS as well. Make sure your applications are hidden from the users, and you provide access and only if it requires. If it's, especially if it's a bring your own internet kind of operations where people are operating it from home, you make sure applications are hidden from them unless you verify you don't provide access to them. Then the most important thing that you have to learn, if something that you want to learn from today, is one of the key factor is multi-factor authentication. Make sure you provide multi-factor authentication at all levels. When I say multi-factor authentication, not just about one applications, but about authentication at even at remote desktops connection level or process level. Multi-factor authentication at every level will help you reduce the attack surface. A strong EDR and a SAEM solution for a comprehensive reporting is definitely needed for a good endpoint security with a zero trust model. Then finally, data encryption, right? Encryption is the way, data encryption is the way that you minimize your problems. So if you have these adopted into your endpoint security, right? I have just posted it as endpoints lockdown. If you are able to, Romana spoke about a patch vulnerability management and why you need an application control level. And I spoke about the zero trust model. I spoke about the anti-ransomware. So if you can have all these around your endpoints, we call it as endpoint lockdown, then I think these are the absolute must of endpoint security, which will reduce your attack surface to a greater extent. A stronger browser security, a stronger endpoint privilege access management, patch management, a stronger NAC for your endpoints. So we at ManageEngine offer these as solutions called the Unified Endpoint Management. So if you're looking for a holistic solution that has all these security measures and management measures in a nutshell, then we have a solution called Unified Endpoint Management, where you have endpoint security, endpoint management, and you also have modern management in place. So get in touch with SG Tech or even with us in case you need more information. With that, I have come to the end of my session. Thank you very much for patiently listening to my session. Over to you. Thank you, Jasri.
Thanks, Santosh, for your presentation. A reminder to all our participants, if you have any questions, you may use the Zoom Q&A function and post in them. We will address to them shortly, during the panel discussion and Q&A session. Right. So right now, we will now move on to the panel discussion. We are pleased to have two invited guest panelists who will join Dutch and Romanians in the discussion. First, we have Adrian, ESCO member of Association of Information Security Professionals. Adrian is a Chief Information Security Officer with more than 22 years of experience as an info security professional with knowledge in system integration, consultancy, pre-sale support, partner enablement training, end user training, and team leadership. He has a successful track record in multinational corporations, as well as reputable system integrator companies such as PCCW Solution, BT, and NCS. Second, we have Vivian, Managing Director of Recent International, a cybersecurity competency development company based in Singapore. He carries with him 20 years of experience in IT training and education solutions to enterprises, professionals, and students in the APAC. Recent took out the exclusive distributorship for EC Council and the cybersecurity certification courses since 2015, as Vivian saw the importance of cybersecurity skills and the opportunity a globally recognized certification will bring to the people in the region. This panel discussion will be moderated by Dutch. If you have any questions, please submit them using the Q&A. Dutch, over to you.
Thank you, Jess. I'm back again, and thank you for this really very insightful sharing for Romanius and Santos. And thanks for this information that I know that ransomware hit about 46.4%, and we need really patch management, data lake, and application management requirement as well. And Santos, right? Thanks for the Colonial pipeline of ransomware, right? Attack and VPN multi-factor authentication. I think it's all aggregate together that facilitate on some of our thinking point that I just realized when you all have this presentation. Let me kick off with the first of my thoughts by itself is, I think everybody is working from home, right? And most of them in this part of the world, or part of the world. The new normal of remote work, right? Demand security and management infrastructure to be shifted to the cloud, real-time endpoint protection, and more even. What is your view on more migration towards the cloud? Maybe I just pass it to Managed Engine, Romanius, to answer these questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Dutch. So as I mentioned, remote work is becoming the culture now, more and more adoption. Was there even before the pandemic, right? But the pandemic has actually catalyzed ensuring that there is more adoption. And there is a report from Gartner which talks about what should have happened in 7 years has happened in just in 12 to 13 months. Right? That's a massive move towards the remote work. Now, moving to the remote work also increases the attack surface, right? Now, from our point of view, from the day that the pandemic has started, when we opened up our doors for the customers to provide them some solutions, how they can go about work from home. Now, the ones who are successfully able to go through this smoothly are the ones who had already decided to have their applications on the cloud, right? So the first priority of remote work was initially to get access to the business application. You have your employees outside, you have the endpoint available with them. But in order to continue the business, you have to access the business application. Now, if you have your business application on the cloud, 70% of the problems continuing your business has already solved. Now, when you have that as a on-prem solution within your organization or in your data center, and that's where the problems what Santosh covered in his presentation, like about bandwidth, the VPN, access control, auditing, who gets what access, right? All those headaches have to be considered. Now, from the beginning, those who have moved to cloud has a better advantage, and even moving forward, the monitoring, the management, the security, the productivity tools, right? All these things are moving into the cloud. For example, even how we do the meetings. This is supposed to be a live meeting, greeting everyone sitting together. Now, this is possible because we have this thing hosted somewhere on the cloud, and every individual who could be from office, from car, or from airport, anywhere you should be able to attend this. Now, this enables the cloud, moving to the cloud enables the end users to be more productive and at the same time be secure. So I think cloud adoption is going to be more in this upcoming years, and organizations have to align in such a way they protect and ensure their workforce or their applications are available on cloud. Over to you.
Hey, yeah. I think this is well said, right, Romanius, on this portion. I could see that people are going to cloud and application, business application, and heading to cloud. With this intent, right, definitely that securities and all the solution have to be in place, because everybody coming in anywhere, they're able to log in and communicate within the business needs, right? But this really cater me to another questions that I want to ask you is that, when this being in the cloud, endpoint being implemented, right? When people are focused on the attack surface reduction, right? We call it the ASR. How can endpoint be the strongest link in the business?
Yeah, that's tricky. See, when endpoints go out, your attack surface actually increases, right? Now, as I was telling in the beginning, that is the biggest concern for all the IT teams. Every individual teams whom we have worked with during this pandemic had this biggest challenge. Now, the best way to go about making enabling the endpoint and ensuring the attack surface is reduced or protected is basically when you have perfect cyber hygiene for the endpoints. Right? So you continuously do this cyber. I mean, when you are inside the organization, you have the luxury to accumulate it and do it once in 3 months. Maybe if it's a 0-day, IT teams would be doing the patching, or IT team would be deploying all the patches which are marked as critical. Now, when you are outside the organization, you don't provide gaps between what is protection currently and right today and what you are doing it probably by accumulating the patches for 3 months. Now that cannot happen. Now, having these basic cyber hygiene, no misconfigurations, no unwanted applications, no unwanted ports and privileges, and finally, perfect patching for the operating system, applications, third party, not only with respect to Windows, but also with respect to others. Right? Now, when you have this, you try to reduce the attack surface on the endpoint. Now, I'm speaking only with respect to the endpoints. Now, there are web applications, there are VPN, there are so many factors, so many areas where the attack surface is actually exposed to the outside. So everywhere there has to be cyber hygiene practices, and you have to redefine your IT policies and ensure your security posture is redefined periodically. So we talk about cybersecurity profiles and cybersecurity frameworks. Now, these frameworks cannot be taken directly and implemented. Now we have tools. These tools cannot be taken and implemented in your organization. Having a better blend of very good understanding of the framework and also the requirements in terms of your organization, in terms of endpoints, clouds, the communication, data, encryption, all put together, designing your own way of implementing that, your own design security posture, and that is going to be your IT policy. That's where you should be able to reduce the attack surface. And that way the endpoint scattered in the remoteness and the cloud and data traveling between these two would be most beneficial to the business, not to hamper or damage the business.
Okay, I think, yeah, fair enough to read that. Just want to pull up to our others panelists, right? In fact, that Adrian, do you anything that you want to add on the same aspect as what Romanians have shared? Adrian, probably you're on mute.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, thanks for asking. Now, what Romanians mentioned this makes sense, and I would like to pick up on 2 points. One is the cyber hygiene, as well as reviewing of the cyber policy within the organization. I think a good cyber hygiene goes a long way to prevent a lot of cyber attacks, and also to ensure that the users, your user base, is aware of good cyber hygiene practices, right? And not do anything to disable anything by accident, which will then compromise the endpoints, right? But if with proper configuration management, which doesn't give them the that kind of control, that should be greatly minimized. So yeah, and also the policies lah, that the within the organization, that the users are well aware of the policies of what they do and should not do. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Yep, I believe so, because policy as now and before are different, and policy need to be reviewed. Definitely with the changes of especially post and pre and post pandemic by itself. But just hit my mind quickly in certain way, that because when I was, probably about 20 years ago, security and conveniency is always, on the opposite side. So just another question to you, maybe Romania said, is security and productivity is a trade-off? And really, how can an organization strike the correct balance between security and productivity or business continuity? Yeah. Romania?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. Yes, when you talk about the security and productivity, right? So this kind of has to have a balance. What we have seen is during these days, there is more focus on security. Initially, if you look at when the endpoints were outside for the first time on a larger scale, and every organization would have had 10 to 20% before the pandemic, and after the pandemic, it's 80 to 90% outside, right? Now, when you have such a big rush, the main objective was to ensure the businesses continued using the endpoint. When everybody agreed on that, and it was continued. Now, immediately after the business continuity, what came to the mind was the security, securing the endpoints. Now, that is where people started adding more security layers so that the end users' devices or end users' applications are protected. Now, you from IT point of view, what you have done is good for the business to continue. However, from the end users' point of view, this is so challenging and taxing on them, right? Now they have to give the password, do second factor authentication, or have some biometric this thing, and inside the application again he has to go start doing these things. Now there were so many security enforcement on the end user, which ended up in saying there is less productivity. Now, if you look at Gartner or Forrester, they started talking about end user experience, right? So irrespective of productivity or security, what you have, what kind of experience is that you are providing to the end user? Experience. It could be knowledge users or the regular normal users. How do you treat them, and what are your measures? Say, for example, we very well understand security should be part of the design. The end user should be designed in such a way, the product or end user should be trained in such a way that security cannot be taken as an additional layer, but it is part of the process, right? Now, if you look at scenarios like this, when you are accessing an organizational resource from the airport kiosk, you have the third-party device. You are using the network from a public available one, and perhaps when you connect, you give your credentials for the VPN or for the applications. Now it's only you that can be identified as you, but the device, the network, and all other factors are not known. Now this is where you have to have a tighter security, right? Now, when you are inside your organization, using your own laptop, your own mobile, inside the office network, and using your credential, now there is contextual awareness. Now you are very well within the organization, then the layers could be changed in a different way. The multi-factor could be enabled in a different way so that there is easy identification and allowing you to access the resource. Now, this is something that we have to have some contextual awareness in terms of security. That will increase the productivity. One, training the end users, employees to understand that they are partners, they are part of your security. Two, having such a contextual awareness in terms of security would help you to balance security and productivity in the organization. That's my.
Oh, I mean, I'm in the technology, so definitely I'm happy to have that. Even today that we are using this financial app that we have to access, right? We inbuilt a lot of security, and I feel it is very convenient, and I mean, it didn't impact my productivity itself. I could look at that from a consumer perspective, right? Maybe Brandon, you have anything that you want to add regarding on these productivities that, you know, whether it's a trade-off of security?
I certainly believe that productivity is a critical factor for business leader, and then that's the whole idea of why the business is set up. But unfortunately, we are facing these threats in the markets that we have to set in sufficient security to manage the risk factor that we are facing overall. So I will have to agree to what Romania said, that is productivity and security is in a way a trade-off. But I believe that with the various technology available in the market right now, if we implement it correctly, we could get a slightly better ratio in that trade-off, right? But unfortunately, the ever-changing environments sometimes changes so fast that some of these technology get obsolete or become useless. All right. If I would just cite one pain that I have is before the pandemic, using the iPhone with face recognition is so easy, so convenient. But these days are just it's really a challenge, because every time you want to use a face recognition, you got to take out the mask. And how I wish that I can go back to the thumbprint recognition device, you know. So this is just one of the small instance example, but we can't run away from the fact that the productivity and security is definitely a trade-off, but we try to find technology that can help us improve that ratio, right? So that would be my 2 cents, so to speak.
Hey, Raymond, I think we are facing the same issue, talking about phones, right? I believe the next generation phone will back to fingerprint, probably, right? I think related to some of the questions that's being asked in the chat just now regarding ransomware is in progress. Maybe I just want to pull this question that there are a lot of known and discussed proactive approach to protect against ransomware and the mitigation of measure to recover the business from ransomware. How do you respond when a ransomware attack is in progress? I mean, Romania, you're talking about ransomware in and out, right? I have to kneel on you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Dutch. See, probably I don't know how many of you, how many of the participants would have experienced ransomware. See, if you look at an army or a military person, the security incidents are not happening on a day-to-day basis, but they are trained and simulated with such scenarios so that they could anticipate when such a real thing is happening, right? Now, I would kind of correlate that with ransomware attack. Apart from what we offer as a software, I'll talk about the software. See, software is something, the ransomware has only one objective, and it can do that. I mean, we talked about tactics, techniques, procedures, common knowledge about the learnings from the attacks. Now, with respect to that, a ransomware attack is one such thing, one such tactics techniques being used to launch that tactics. Now, if you look at ransomware, it is going to start encrypting. Now, you have to understand whether the encryption, which is launched by that process is authenticated by your own or your own applications. Otherwise, it's going to kill it. Now, when you kill it, the ransomware attack is stopped, right? And there is a loss of data, and that would be recovered and immediately replaced. Now, the software takes care of it. Anti-ransomware software would take care of it. So it is automatically done within seconds. You will not know unless it is going to give some alerts to the event log and to the different consoles where they can get to know about this attack. This is on the software side. Now on the people side of it, now unless until you have a proper training on how to react during such attacks, then this is going to be really critical. Now think about clicking on the spam mails, and people are interested in clicking on every link, whether it is shopping or it is a free ticket or it is a free coupon. They just click on everything. Now that's where it started. So having a proper knowledge or war zone scenario of being trained on that. So unless that is happening, the ransomware cannot be contained. Only with the, I mean, it will keep on fighting. But if you keep on having more vantage points, then that's going to bring more chances of understanding. We have to remember it is not only the products or technology is being utilized by the vendors, but also utilized by the threat actors, adversaries. They too have machine learning. They too have artificial intelligence. So probably more attacks, more such clicks would allow them to understand the logic, and they should be able to find the gap. That's what there is a slide that is actually taken from Microsoft. They say the threat actors are like water. They will find the smallest gap and try to leak through that. Now, unless you train your end users and ensure a warfare ready kind of mindset, then this is going to be a really challenge. And moving forward, there is prediction that there's going to be more ransomware and threat attacks. So we have to prepare in terms of software and ensuring that it is taking care. And on the other side, you should also educate the end users like they are prepared for the war, so that they are ready to fight at any time.
Yeah, I think these minutes, it just hit me straight away, right? At one point in time, PS5 was just launched, right? And my wife was surfing the internet, and then he said, "Hey, I want a PS5. Please click the link and get your award." I was shocked. I say, "You wait long. Okay, there's not such thing will happen, right?" Agreed, totally fine. I think this is happening everywhere right now. But I want to go to this one question, something about design that I want to get the audience at the pool as well. And the question is that how are organizations supposed to embrace DLP? DLP is data leak prevention. Okay, probably that Jess, can you pull up this pool? So you just briefly to understand from the audience. I repeat the questions. Okay. How are organizations supposed to embrace DLP, data leak prevention? Let me see the pool. Okay, well, the system is still running. Let's maybe, Romanians or Brandon or Adrian probably want to please pick it up. Adrian, you're on mute.
Okay, so let me just kick off this question on how to embrace DLP. Maybe I can share from perspective of a project experience, which I implemented a couple of years back, and in fact 2 projects, and from there, give some hindsight on how to embrace the implementation of DLP in your organization. It boils down to 3 points from how I see it. One is to have a clear direction or support from the senior management within the organization, right? When it comes to implementation of DLP. Why do I say that? Because I recall that that particular project was rather challenging in the beginning because not of the technology, but more of the people convincing the staff to be involved in the identification of data to be protected. You know, that's the very first step. And if there's no clear direction or support from the senior management, that project would never have gotten off the ground, right? There were a lot of disagreements in the beginning between the staff and the project team, you know, and it kind of stalled for a while. But with support, strong support from the management, the project continued, right, to completion. Then also for everyone in the organization, especially the senior management, is to start with asking the question why? Why should we implement DLP, right? I think that's a very fundamental question to ask. Once you understand why you need to implement DLP within the organization and communicate this out throughout the organization, then everyone in the organization is clear on the one directive. And of course, lastly is to identify what kind of data is critical for the organization to protect, right? Whether it's financial or intellectual property or business strategy, sales information, that kind of thing, right? Because there are tons of data within the organization. Where do you start from? It depends organization to organization.
Yep. Adrian, I think it's spot on that as well. And probably I just think back just now, also quite related, hindering me as well, is that, no, I have a PS5, people click, and Romanians were asking, right? We need a lot of us of educational type of events or sharing to educate people that, you know, security is very important and not to click the link, right? So in a new norm that many people are working from outside of office, and many new endpoint security solutions also emerge to assist enterprise in dealing with the new challenges. Is user awareness training continue to be critical? Probably this one I know opposed to Brandon on the educational side.
Okay, if it's for me to give a quick answer to it, and I think it's a definite yes. User awareness training will continue to be a critical factor to improve the cyber defense. I mean, essentially, cyber defense has always been a cats and mouse game, and this chase is ever going, never end. So unfortunately, most of the time we are in the position of the mouse. We are not the cat, right? So to keep up with defense, implementing new, more efficient and more effective technologies such as endpoint security on the cloud is critical, like what Romania shared. But to face the ever-changing threat environment and threat vector, preparing the employee, beefing up the cyber hygiene factors like what Adrian has shared earlier is also critical. And therefore, keeping the human firewall strong essentially helps to strengthen the entire enterprise cyber posture. So that is critical, and it has to be a continuous effort. That would be my opinion.
Okay, Reverend, definitely. I think sharing is I would believe that sharing is caring, right? I think you're caring how you look for your security. I think this is always a key factor. And I think for the time, we started late about 5 minutes, so probably have 2 minutes left. Probably we have last remark that you want to give from the panelists. I think it's good to share with the audience. Probably I'll start with Romanius. You want to start on your last remark or take away for our audience?
Yeah, sure, Dash. So, so there are challenges at each phase of the evolution of the technology, right? Now, when you evolve with new devices, new technology, and there are a set of people who actually have used it for the negative ways to impact the business threat actors, right? Now, there has always been solutions also available alongside. Now, we have to ensure that we embrace the right solution and ensure that our business is continued. Now, protecting the endpoints, protecting the devices, servers, protocols, data is not going to be, should not be a biggest challenge when you have a proper understanding of the framework, security framework, and the requirements, what you need for them, and the choosing of the right tool. So we talk about unified because we are more specific on the endpoints. We talk about a unified way of managing it that will enable you to manage your legacy devices. There are organizations who are still using the older servers, older operating systems, right? They have LTS, long-term service bills, or older bills which are being served by Microsoft with patches. Now you have to ensure these are also protected, and your modern day operating systems and devices, right? Even there are bring your own devices kind of requirements, right? Now those things are put together, should be managed from a single console for known vulnerabilities, and also about unknown. I mean, the vendor doesn't know, the end user doesn't know, only threat actors know that there is vulnerabilities. Now you should have a strategy to even protect that. So having an understanding of the framework and having a better consolidated tool like Unified Endpoint Management would enable you to manage or secure your endpoints well to continue the business in the right way. Thank you.
Thanks, Romanius. I definitely, from Managed Engine point of view, I think it's a great solutions that how we can leverage on. Maybe back to Adrian. Adrian, anything that from the last remarks?
Well, closing remarks would probably, I would just want to close by saying, unfortunately, throughout the whole history of security, humans are still the weakest link throughout the whole chain. And you can implement, world-class technology like Managed Engine. But if your people are not educated, right, with the basic stuff like what Bevran mentioned, the basic policies, what you can and cannot do, should or should not do within the organization. With modern day technology, is so easy to use. You can give an iPad, a secure iPad, to a 3-year-old kid, and the 3-year-old kid can just play around with it, swipe, and oops, something goes off, and the security controls are gone, and that's a loophole. It can happen. So I think continuous, what I'm trying to say is continuous education of the end users is still very much important, and in fact critical to the safety, cyber hygiene of an organization, and that shouldn't be neglected. Yeah.
Thanks, Adrian. Definitely for the 3-year-old kid may happen on the swipe, right? To allow permission. This is why for workforce or for staff or employees also requires the protection and how Managed Engine can help. Yep. So for Bremvans, you're on the educator side. So your last remark before I close up.
So certainly as an educator, I would certainly support what Adrian has said. But nonetheless, we all understand, looking at the new norm, as we mentioned, we cannot just depend on our traditional methods of securing, but we cannot depend on them, but we cannot forget about them. So essentially what it means is to embrace this new environment and have ourselves ready. We have to embrace the new technology that are available in the market. And certainly Managed Engine from Romania's side will be the answer, all right, to many of these questions. And at the same time, keeping our people, all right, up to the level that is a minimum capability to manage their own security at home and at their workplace, has become more and more critical day after day, and therefore training our people is also equally important. So I believe that would then more or less sum up, what we have discussed today, and what I strongly believe, as well as myself as an individual for my own company.
Hey, thank you, panelists. And I indeed that I also learned a lot from you guys. Within all in the cybersecurity field. But now I want to, before I pass the time to Jess to close up things, I just wish everyone a happy Diwali or Diwali festival. Stay safe and good luck for your following weeks. Thank you, guys. And Jess, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks to all the speakers for the very insightful and active discussion, right? And of course, we'd like to thank our partner, Manage Engine, for supporting this webinar. We hope everyone has found the session useful and you have gained valuable takeaways. We appreciate for all of you to staying, all the way with us till the very end. So before we end off, right, we'd like to invite all participants to help us complete this short survey so that we can create relevant content and also improve for our future sessions. You can scan this QR code on the slide to access to the survey form, or you can actually click on the link which my colleague, right, has just inserted onto the chat, right? For participants who complete the post-webinar survey, you will receive a link to download the presentation that shared by the Managed Engine speakers earlier. Right. If you're also keen to participate in other SGTech activities, do scan the QR code on the screen to find out more about our upcoming events and programs, right? Lastly, we would also like to invite our participants to follow SGTech social accounts to keep up to date on our advocacy position articles, upcoming events, industry research reports, and more. So once again, thank you everyone for attending today, and we hope to see you soon in the next session. Take care, stay safe, and happy Deepavali holiday.